Hi, I'm Ken. It's cold outside. Let's go inside and look at some stamps.
Today we're going to take a look at my King George V stamps from Canada. I know I have many strong collecting viewers from Canada and the UK. I'm a beginning collector of Canada and I don't have a strong grounding in the British monarchy, but I'll take the risk of sharing anyway. Canada. So where to start? I could start with the provinces, but then I'd be showing you a lot of blank pages. I do have some stamps from Newfoundland, but I won't dive into all of them. Technically, these stamps are from the colony of Newfoundland. Newfoundland would become a dominion in 1907 and officially join with Canada as a province in 1949. Colonies, territories, dominions, these words all have very official definitions in the British Empire, or the Commonwealth of Nations, or the United Kingdom. Really, they're just trying to mess with me, I think. I can't keep it all straight, but that's not necessary for a stamp video. Suffice it to say that Newfoundland was a part of the British Empire, but not yet a part of Canada, by the way, which still was and is a part of the British Empire. These stamps are not the earliest stamps from Newfoundland, but they do feature royalty, and since this video will focus on King George V stamps from Canada, why not start here? This is an excellent place to start with royalty on Canadian stamps because the first stamp, the 1/2 cent stamp, with what looks like a little girl to me, is actually a young King Edward VIII. He would be king for such a short time that Canada never got around to giving him his own king stamps, but here you go, he's on a Canadian stamp. There will be others, but none as king. Canada does seem to like to feature the extended royal family. This is one I particularly like. This is Queen Elizabeth as a young princess. I'm not aware of any Princess Elizabeth stamps from Great Britain, so this is just a delight for me. So this Newfoundland series has stamps of the future King Edward VIII, the then Queen Victoria and future King Edward VII and his Queen Alexandra. I don't have these stamps. These are the Duke and Duchess of York, who would later become King George V and Queen Mary after a short reign of Edward VIII, the little kid on the 1/2 cent stamp. This video is really about distinguishing the King George V stamps of Canada, but it seems worth taking a moment to go over the various monarchs on British stamps so we can see where King George V fits in. I'm sure that Commonwealth viewers will have this down pat, but I always have to look it up to keep it all straight. This is the world's first postage stamp, the penny black. Actually, this is my copy of the penny black. I'm so happy to have this. This stamp features Queen Victoria. And this is Canada's first stamp as a dominion, featuring an image of Victoria. There are other stamps of Victoria and other issues from when Canada was a province, that is, a British colony, but I don't have any of those stamps to share. I'm happy to have these various issues from the early Victoria designs. These specific stamps are called the Small Queens. Canada collectors can go wild with first and second Ottawa printings, Manitoba printings, shade, paper, and perforation varieties. The Scott catalog is more subdued. Canada later issued these new designs of an older Queen Victoria. Victoria was queen for almost 64 years. There are lots of variants of these older Queen Victoria stamps. Canada can be a rich area to collect. The next British monarch was Edward VII, who was king for 9 years. The top stamp is from Great Britain, the bottom one is from Canada. Next came George V, who we're going to focus on in this video. Again, the top one is from Great Britain, the bottom one is from Canada. He was king for 25 years, during the period around World War I. This is a great place to point out how much these two kings look alike. I'd like to say there's some feature that makes it easy to tell these two kings apart. Sometimes George has a curled up mustache, has more hair, and sometimes he looks a little thinner than his father, but that's not true of all the designs. Again, I bet my British viewers have no problem with this, but I have to check my catalog every time to tell these two apart. There's more than a little family resemblance. This is Edward VIII. He was king for less than a year. The top stamp is one of just 4 from Great Britain that feature him. There are none from Canada of him as king. I'm using this baby Newfoundland stamp for him. Next we have George VI, Edward's brother. Again, there's a strong family resemblance, but this isn't such a problem in Great Britain collecting since there's only 2 designs, which are easy to tell apart. It's easy with Canada too, since there are no King Edward VIII stamps. And next we move on to Queen Elizabeth II. These designs are from the Wilding photographs, but Great Britain has the Mockins and Canada adds a number of regular issue designs for the Queen. But that's for another video. Finally, the current monarch is King Charles III. These are brand new designs for him, not my stamps though. I've yet to get a King Charles stamp. You might notice that the British stamp has a barcode hanging off the right edge. That's a new thing and I'm not quite sure what to make of it. Apparently each individual stamp can be tracked. It's a way to combat forgeries. Okay, so that's the list of monarchs and we can see where King George V fits in. But the point of this video is to help distinguish the various Canadian King George V stamp designs. There are 5 basic design types for George V stamps. That 4th design is different from the others, and the first design is somewhat different, but the other 3 designs use the exact same portrait with just different frames. When I was just starting out collecting these, I had a hard time recognizing that there were even different stamps. They looked so similar to me. This is the Edward VII design for reference. It also looks similar enough to add to the confusion. To tell this design from the George V stamps, I look at the collar. Edward is wearing a white fur collar from his coronation robes. George V's collar is always an admiral's uniform. In fact, the first George V design is called the Admiral stamps, although since 4 of the designs have him in the same outfit, that alone is not enough to identify this issue. These are my George V Admiral stamps. I have a good start on the main set. Notice how many of the denominations come in multiple colors. For example, the 1 cent comes in 2 major colors, a green and an orange yellow. There's also a minor color of just yellow. The 2 cent comes in both carmine and green, but there are minor colors too, a pink and a rose carmine. The 10 cent comes in 3 major colors, plum, blue, and bistre brown. Besides the colors, there are 2 die types of the 1 cent and the 3 cent values. There's a lot to collect in this simple set because of how long they were produced. Beyond colors and types, there are 3 different coil types. I just have 2 of those stamps so far. There's also 3 imperforate stamps, and 1 stamp released much later than the others with an odd 12x8 perforation. Finally, there are 2 surcharge stamps that are a bit harder to get a hold of. Besides these regular issue stamps, there are 2 series of war tax stamps with a similar design. These were issued to help cover the cost of World War I. Notice that these designs are exactly the same as the Admiral stamps, but with either war tax or what looks like ITC written over his uniform. The ITC is actually the number 1, a T, and a cents sign, standing for 1 cent tax. These war tax stamps are quite common. To identify these first set of Admiral stamps, you're going to look for 3 features. First, the frame is roughly an oval around George's head, with Canada postage written in it. Second, George's head is in profile. And third, the denomination number is in the color of the stamp, surrounded by a white box. All the other George V stamp have the number in white surrounded by the color of the stamp. I've labeled this chart with the key characteristics of each design. I'll put a copy of this on my blog for later reference. The second set is called the Scrolls issue. An interesting cultural note. These are the first bilingual stamps from Canada, Postus in French and Post in English. You can distinguish these stamps by the scroll along the top with Canada written in it. These stamps also have a 3/4 pose for George, and of course the white numbers, but really the key feature is the scroll, hence the nickname. My collection is light on these stamps, but I do have this 2 cent coil pair. Both edges are a little clipped, unfortunately. And that 1 cent orange is horribly centered and has a blotchy cancel that gives the king a mask. I've got a much better start on this page. For these stamps, the king is framed by an arch. On quick glance, the arch can look like the scroll, and just looking at the top of the stamp, the arch can look like a circle, but note how the arch at the top comes straight down the sides of the stamps into the number tablet. Actually, if you compare the bottom of this stamp with the bottom of the scroll stamp, they look almost identical. Be careful identifying these issues. You'll see that these issues also come in multiple colors for each denomination. I have 2 colors of the 1 cent and 3 colors of the 2 cent. There are also 2 colors for the 5 cent and the 8 cent stamps, and there are coil stamps for the lower denomination and 1 surcharge of 3 cents on a 2 cent red. So far I don't have any of the higher values and just 1 of the coil stamps. But look down at that last strip. That's a 10-cent Library of Parliament stamp, whose frame looks identical to these George V arch stamps. That 10-cent stamp is actually part of this same series. There's this stamp and 4 others. I don't have any of the others in my collection to show you, but here's an example I was able to dig up. This is the $1 value of the same series, and I've included my 10 cent for comparison. There are 3 other designs, all with the larger format at 12 cents, 20 cents, and 50 cents. Take a look at the designs for the larger values. The top of the stamp looks more like the scroll design than the arch design. Notice the ribbon-like shape at the top of the stamp where Canada is written, and notice how the lines on both sides go above and below the postus and postage words. At the same time, note the similar elements to the arch design, the spelling out of postage, and the maple leaves in the corners. There's a lot of liberty with the continuity of the designs in this series. Actually, this isn't the first King George series to include higher value pictorial issues. The scroll design also included 5 wide format higher values from 10 cents to $1. Again, this $1 stamp is not my copy. There's even less design continuity between these stamps and the scroll designs that they were paired with. At least the basic framing of the arch designs is the same with the wide format designs. The next design is a wild departure from the others. It's called the Medallion series. You won't have any problem telling these from the others. The king is in profile, and it's just his head, no admiral outfit, although in many ways this design is similar to the others. This one has an arch at the top, or is it a scroll? A compromise that evokes both for sure. Postus and postage run along the two sides. Notice the diagonal crowns in the top corners replace the maple leaves, which are retained in the design but moved down. This pattern will continue for the next series. I'm just missing 3 stamps for this set. I'm missing the 4 cent and 8 cent values. There are coils on the last strip, and I'm just missing the 1 cent coil stamp. You might also notice the stamp on the first strip. That's actually a commemorative stamp for the Imperial Economic Conference held in Ottawa in 1932. Written below the bust are the words Ottawa Conference 1932, and the 12-cent wide format of the Quebec Citadel from the Arch series is reprinted with this series as a 13-cent stamp. This final page of King George V stamps returns to the familiar image of the 3-quarter pose with the king in his admiral's uniform. There are 6 values of this design, although I just have the first 5. Additionally, there are 3 coil versions to collect with this series and 5 new wide value stamps. These start at 13 cents and go up to $1. These issues are called the dated die issues. I guess they couldn't figure out what to call that new style of frame at the top. Is it a banner or an oval? I don't know. But seriously, this is called the dated die because the date of the stamp, 1935, is hidden in the design. See if you can find it. I'll just leave this up for a moment for you. Okay, don't bother. Even if I zoomed in on this image, you wouldn't be able to see it. It's just too small for the resolution of this image. I had to take an image through a magnifying glass to bring this date into focus. There, you should be able to make it out in this image. Still hard, I think. Look where the oak leaf crosses the oval of the frame. On one side, you'll see the 19, and on the other side, the 35. It's incredible to me how detailed an engraved design like this can be, although I'm not sure I've ever seen a detail this small on an engraved stamp. And that's it for these stamps. Before we wrap up, I have a fun find to share. This is a US 3-cent Washington with the C grill. I volunteer at the Spelman Museum, and one of the things that I do there is to go through donated collections, identifying what was donated. Most times, collections include very common stamps. I was going through a cigar box full of common US stamps on paper. A lot of old collections come in cigar boxes. Anyway, I was sorting through these common stamps, making sure that nothing special was hidden in them when I saw a 3x5 manila stock card with a few stamps tucked into it. I saw this 3-cent stamp and a 15-cent stamp from the same series. The 15-cent stamp caught my eye because I knew that they cataloged for about $50. That's a special find, exactly what I was looking for. The 3-cent stamp that you normally find is certainly worth pulling out, but the common one is a $3 stamp. When I pulled the $3 stamp out, I turned it over and noticed the grill on the back. Now we're talking. Stamps with grills are pretty uncommon, but most that you find are worth about $10. Still a better than average stamp. There are multiple grill types, so I pulled out the catalog and looked this one up. The grill points can be pointed up or down on the stamp, and these are up, the more valuable variety. I called over the curator and we confirmed the orientation in the grill type. This one was a C grill, Scott 83, which catalogs over $1,000. It's been a goal of mine to find something that was so nice that it belonged in the collection. This stamp was that find for me. This stamp is far rarer than anything in my collection. The museum needed this one, and I was glad to both find it and add it to the museum's collection. What a thrill. Normally I'd end these videos with a call to like and subscribe, but I think this image is a better way to end today. Happy December, and stay warm.